In this video, we are going to take a look at how to create a structured while loop. All loops that are structured should have an initialization, a guard, and an update. What you see on the screen here is our initialization part. We declare a variable that's called the loop control variable. We set it to an initial value. And then we're going to start with our reserved word while, which means that word is what indicates to the compiler that we're running this kind of a loop. We are going to say while count is less than 5. And in Coral, you don't have to put the parentheses in, but in many programming languages you do, and I think it helps with readability of the code, so I use parentheses. And then we're just going to echo that value to the screen. We're going to put a space between those values for readability, and then we have to update our loop control variable. So the loop control variable is the value that is controlling whether this loop guard is true or false. So as long as count is smaller than 5, our loop will be entered. When that expression is true, we enter the loop and it runs. So if we watch the value of count over here, you can see that count is incrementing. It is printing to the screen, and as we increment, the loop continues. As soon as our loop control variable gets beyond our limit, then we stop. This particular loop shows you the structure of the while loop. There are some places that we can improve, and there are some other intricacies of the while loop that you should be aware of. One place for improvement is to eliminate magic numbers. In this particular case, our 5 is a magic number, 1 is not. So you don't have to replace every single number in your code. The 5 is a magic number because it designates something that we're not sure what it represents. So I'm going to create a constant called limit, and then I'm going to set that limit to our value 5, and then I replace that literal value in our code with the variable. It doesn't change how the code executes, but it does make the code more readable, and it also kind of makes it nice for doing a comparison over here when you are watching your code in execution. So I have written this particular while loop as a definite loop, but oftentimes the while loop is an indefinite loop. So definite means we know the number of executions before we start, prior to coding. But often the while loop is used in a scenario when we don't know how many times the loop is going to execute. So let us show you one more example of the while loop and show you a little bit different manner in which you can initialize and execute some code. In this example, I'm using price as my loop control variable. I am using getNextInput as my initialization. You have to initialize prior to the loop. So you always have an initialization, a guard, and an update. As long as the price is greater than 0, I'm going to go ahead and execute this loop. I'm going to echo it to the screen, and then I'm going to get the next price. This is my update. So in this particular situation, both my initialization and my updates are controlled by my input values. So we are pretending that a user is inputting prices like they're scanning them at a grocery store. In this particular scenario, you potentially don't know how many times we are going to, or how many items we have in our bag, and so you don't know how many things we might scan. I could add some more items to our grocery bag, and now my code is going to execute several more times. We don't necessarily know how many times this is going to execute because it is simulating inputting values from a user. In this particular case, we call this an indefinite loop, and most of the times a while loop is an indefinite loop where we don't know the number of executions prior to the code running. That is your introduction to the syntax of a while loop.